Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back in. Today we've got a bit of an interesting video, something a little bit different on the channel. Well, you guys saw the thumbnail, you know the title. Let's just hang on. Where is it? Oh yeah, there we go. We had something interesting sent to us, to say the least. And well, I figured we should probably talk about this and maybe compare it to some other ones. This is brand new. Let's talk about it. Oh boy, well, this is something. This here is the T248 by Thrustmaster. The wheel along with the pedals. It's a combining kit. This is the Xbox version. There is one for PlayStation, however, this is for the Xbox version, which releases just now. And you know, just a side note, of course, this is not a sponsored video. This was sent to me for free, however. There's no one seeing this video beforehand. I'm not being paid to make this video, just for transparency, of course, right? You guys get it. So what we're gonna do with this, we'll unbox this, we'll take a look what it comes with. We'll discuss where this kind of fits in, if this is the right wheel, and of course, we're going to put the farming simulator slant on this. That's what this channel is designed around. And we'll talk a little bit about, is this the right wheel for farming simulator? Is there better options? What are your options? And we'll kind of muddle our way through that. We'll do some comparison. All right, let's open this thing up, shall we? Let's go. So like I said, this is not a typical video for the channel, so I apologize for some of the shadows and lighting. We'll try to get the shadows out of the way as much as possible. Of course, we've got the banana for scale just to help things out a little bit, and you know, I enjoy unboxing just as much as the next guy. So let's pop into this. So let's open up the top flap. Looks like we have a couple other flaps here. There we go. And right off the bat, we've got a little covering for the wheel. Let's see it. Yep, and that's definitely the wheel right on top here. Let's pull this on out and get the wrapping paper all off. We'll just set this aside, but there you go. Just a little preview look at it. Put this over here. And what do we got next inside the box here? Can we get into this back piece here? There we go. It comes right on out. Looks like, I thought that was the pedals. That's definitely not the pedals. Pedals must be just underneath. Yep, there they are. So the pedals themselves, all plastic base. Then the pedals themselves are metal. We've got a USB cable that kind of routes around the back. Looks like we've got, oh, there's the spring right there. That's right, that's changeable. We'll look at that. And here you can see the USB cable routing. Kind of routes through the side, which is kind of nice. There's mounts down here, so you can mount this onto your racing rig if that's what you got. We got some nice rubber foot pads. Now for the small box here, looks like we've got a manual. That's not bad. We got a manual, paper manual. Power supply. It looks like. I think this is the mount. This looks like the mount itself. Yep, this is the mount. Underneath here, we've got a spring for tension with an Allen key. And yeah, there's the power brick itself. Give you an idea what kind of size you're looking at for that power supply and cable. Let's start by taking a look at the mount itself here. We'll see if we can connect this to the wheel, the bag, and we've got the plastic mount and a Allen key type of screw. Interesting. Not an Allen key, but a screw. So looking at the bottom of the wheel itself, you can see there's like some mounting channels almost. One hole for the screw to fit into, and then we just simply spin this into place. And then you can see the actual screw itself has like a flip on it, so it actually adds tension. Your kind of last little push, right when you get everything tightened up, you just flip that over, and then your final tension's there. So let's put this together. We'll slap it up onto the computer and the Xbox, and we'll give it a test and see how it all runs over the next little bit here. I'll give you my thoughts. We'll talk. We'll run it through its trials here and see how this compares to other wheels that are around the same area, and we'll see how this fits into the whole thing. Oh, we got to pull this off. There we go. All right, I'll see you in a bit. So it's been a couple of days. I've had my chance to get my mitts on this. My racing gloves, my farming gloves on this for a little bit and test out the T248 by Thrustmaster. And it's, you know what, it's a great wheel actually. I'm really enjoying using this. The button layout, one of the big sell points actually for me is the button layout. Really like the button layout. We'll talk more about that. The big sell feature on this particular wheel really is the system that runs the force feedback. Now there are three different types of force feedback for most PCs. You're going to run ones, the bare bones ones that are just more of a spring return. You've got the gear system, and then you have a belt system. So that's the price points. They kind of go up, the belt system being the more expensive, the gear system being the midpoint, and a spring return, which is not really even a force feedback, is usually the lower end ones. Now this has a bit of a combined system. It's called a hybrid drive. So it has a geared system along with the belt system, helps keep the cost down, but still gives you a little bit better feeling. And to be honest, if I'm going to compare this to another geared steering wheel, a geared force feedback steering wheel. I think this feels a lot better, to be honest with you. You don't get the same kind of rattles and shakes that that other one would typically give you. This feels more realistic. Now, also looking at the wheel itself, I was a little bit disappointed when I pulled this out of the box, as I thought that the wheel was simply a plastic, but it's not. It's actually a foam-filled leather. It just looks like plastic. I think they could have done a better job with maybe making this look more leathery almost. I feel like it's understated on how it looks and compared to how it feels. So don't worry about the way this looks. It looks like a hard plastic, but it actually is somewhat squishy, and it's a foam-filled leather. Now, another big feature that sets this apart from its competitors is the display, which is right along here. Now, no games are currently running on the computer. It is plugged in, so you do get some lights that light up there. But you do get features on this, and it is working with a lot of different games, from American Truck Sim to F1 Racing to Dirt 5. It gives you your gears, your speed, your current RPMs, your splits, your race times. So if you want to use that for those games, for sure it works. Currently for Farming Simulator 22, there is not a current SKU that's working on this, but it was on their website that they have that in development. So maybe we'll see something along those lines to give us maybe some speeds, RPMs, maybe your gear selection. But I love having that little screen. It's tough to see from the angle you're sitting at, but I still think it's a very cool feature. Now, this brings us to the next feature, which is heads and tails above certain competitors, at least. And that is that everything it's built into the wheel itself. There's no other apps running on your PC, or for instance, your Xbox, having to alt tab to change things. If you want to change your force feedback, for instance, you hit your menu, and then you can actually go into your settings here and simply change all of your force feedback settings. You can see there, we're going to change them up and down. And it's going to change it right on the wheel. You can change it on the fly. You don't need to exit out of your games. Now, on top of changing the amount of force, there is some other presets in here for FFB 1, 2, and 3. Let's see if we can set between those. And those just change the force feedback profiles. They're kind of presets. If you want to have a more aggressive force feedback, a less aggressive, you can quickly change between those. But like I said, the other one, which is just the amount of force, and you can just simply change that on the fly. Now, another interesting setting you can change right from the display is the rotation. So we go up to our, where is it, rotation. And then from here, we can just simply change that from auto and let the game decide. Or it goes from 900, which is roughly, what, 2.5 spins, all the way down to 270, I believe is the lowest. So it's just almost not even a full spin of the wheel. Great for some F1 games, maybe if you don't want to be like spinning your whole wheel. But for like Farm Sim, I would think most people in Farm Sim would want it to have that all the way up at 900. But it gives you the option if you don't want to have that, which is awesome because you can change that on the fly right on the wheel. So as far as form factor goes, I do like the form factor, guys. I like the button layout. And it's a little bit smaller as well than other competitors as far as the chassis goes. It's not as big. Also, the back, you can see where our cable channel is. You've got your cables that come out through the back. And there are a couple of Velcro strips that come along with this to keep your wiring kind of bundled up together. Nice little touch, and it tends to work better than some other competitors. Now, let's talk a little bit about the bracket that holds this to a desk. Now, there is no lap one for Xbox or anything like that. So you're not going to want to have this on your lap. You're going to need a table, of course, to set this down on. Now, the bracket itself is actually pretty good. I was a little bit skeptical when we first put it together, but once you clamp this down to a desk and tighten it all up, it is extremely secure. It's not going anywhere. In fact, this is more secure, I found, than the Logitech system. However, the way that this bracket slides around like this, at any point you can pretty much make it do a 360 until it's locked down where it'll finally fit into a channel and lock into place. I find that frustrating when trying to move this wheel around. If you use this wheel on a desk where it's not a permanent setup, where you have to, every time you want to use it, you set it up, take it down right afterwards, you're done. It's a little bit frustrating, and I find the Logitech's easier to install and tear down and constantly move back and forth. But this system, with the amount of rubber pads they have and the way it locks down, is more secure once it's in place. One other thing I should mention is these little toggles on each side here actually have a few more functions included with each. It's not just a simple up and down and that's it. You only get 4 buttons. They actually have control groups built into this. So on the right side, as I toggle this up, you're going to see you have 4 control groups here. So E1 through E4. Now, if I go to E1 and now I push down, that is the first button of E1. Over on this side, up and down, there's +1 and -1. I can go back up here. Now I go to E2, the same thing. Here's E2 plus and minus and P for down. So each one of these E1 through E4 have 3 extra buttons added in. So you have more button options for that. You'll have to watch your display, of course, to know which group you're in when controlling things. And it's not just that simple, but I mean, it gives you more options for maybe like a cruise control, or for farming simulator, you can choose a bunch of other implements in with that system, which is kind of a nice little addition, especially with all the multifunction tools that are out there. You can just kind of click through this, figure out which control group you want to be part of, and then control that unit for maybe raising or lowering implements. Kind of a cool little setup option. Now, one other feature we should talk about are the paddle shifters. You can see in behind the wheel, you have paddle shifters for up and down, of course. I believe the paddles themselves are actually plastic. Looks like a brushed aluminum, but I believe it's plastic, regardless of which. Very similar to its competitors at this price point. Now, the competitors' paddle shifters, I've always felt were kind of like pulling on a bit of a marshmallow that had a bit of a click. You'd pull, and then it would click, you knew you shifted. Well, I can't say the same with this. This is a new system. It's a magnetic system, so it's supposed to be frictionless. So you have very distinct pull. Now, there's a little bit more of an effort to pull the system, but once you engage it, it definitely goes, and you know when you've clicked this button, there's no squishy feeling whatsoever. It's either on or off. Now, the only thing with this is the amount of noise that comes from it, and you can probably hear that when I pull it. It's very loud. It's actually surprising. Now, for a lot of games, it's probably not going to matter too much, but if you're shifting a lot, if you put your whole hand on it, you can kind of mute it a bit. So it's not as bad, but I think if you're shifting through the gears quickly, you're going to be hearing that noise. That could be somewhat of a distraction or a detractive, I guess, from the wheel itself, but it definitely feels like you know when you shift. It is pretty satisfying, just a little on the noisy side for me personally. Now let's move on to, well, the pedals themselves, guys. And like I said, it's a plastic base, a plastic actuating arm, and then a metal front. So I believe the Logitech has a metal arm as well. Not really needed. These are fairly sturdy plastic. You can see fairly sturdy, fairly substantial amount of plastic, hardened plastic. I really do like the feeling of these pedals as far as the travel goes, and the spring tension on both the clutch and the gas pedal are actually pretty good. They feel accurate. Now, the brakes themselves, that was always a complaint of mine with the Logitech, at least. The brake didn't quite feel right. You've got choices now. You can change this spring out. You can go to a different spring, or you can just go to a rubber nub. And I really do like the feeling you get from this spring. You can tell a lot better when you hit the end of the travel on the brake versus other wheels. Really do like these. One thing, you do just have rubber bases on the bottom of this, or the mount system, but you don't have any of the carpet grabs that some of the other pedals have. So there's no carpet grabs on this one. You're going to need something else on that. Unfortunately, it does tend to stay pretty solid though, from what I've seen so far. It's a fairly substantial pedal system, and yeah, not bad at all to be included with this. Now let's first start talking about price point, because, well, it's gonna be brass tacks. This is your hard-earned dollars. What is it going towards? Now, talking in US dollars, the Thrustmaster goes for $399. Now the all-new G923, it also goes for $399. Now, that being said, the older version, the 920, as well as the G29 Logitechs, you can usually find them on sale. I think their MSRP currently is about $100 less than that right now. But if you want the latest and greatest, it's the exact same price as the new Thrustmaster. And so at that price, you're going to get a better drive system. You're going to get that hybrid drive system. You're also getting the display controls on this, which Logitech does not have. Also, my opinion, but I personally love the fact that everything is controllable and adjustable inside the wheel. No extra apps required. You don't need to change an alt tab out of games to change things up on PC. Love the fact that it's included right in the wheel. That's a huge feature for me personally. Now, the rest of the features, I personally like the grip feeling on the Logitech better. The paddle shifters are hit and miss for both. If you could get the best of both worlds on the paddle shifters, I think that would be nice. Same with the mount itself. I love how quick the Logitech is to mount and easy to change it around, where this one here seems to mount a little bit more securely in my opinion. But then moving on to the pedals, and I think the Thrustmaster pedals are night and day above the Logitechs. I love the feeling of the brake and the clutch especially. They both have a way better feeling in my opinion. So who is this wheel for? Well, if you are looking for a wheel solely to play Farming Simulator, I don't think the Thrustmaster or the Logitech are the wheels for you, to be honest with you. At least the 248. I think there's some other entry-level wheels that don't have all the feature set, such as the force feedback, that Farming Simulator really doesn't take full advantage of. And you could probably get that at a much cheaper price point, maybe half, even more, maybe even a quarter of the price of this unit, depending. I think that may be the way you go look at some of the entry-level Thrustmaster kits out there. But what if you're looking at getting just a little bit more out of your wheel and maybe do some casual driving games or some, amateur sim racing games, or even just some arcade racing games? Well, then you'd probably be looking at getting up to the T248. Really, that's where you're going to be going. That's your next step. Now, the Logitech equivalent as well is very similar to that. And you know what? If you really want to save a few bucks, you could do so by going to the last generation stuff, the G920 or the G29, or even the Thrustmaster TMX 300, all of which have some force feedback. You're going to save a couple dollars, but you're going to be losing, of course, on the new feature set, like, well, the drive system that we have for the force feedback system in the T248, or the display system that we have here as well. So take that into account. Something else to consider if you are also planning on getting an H shifter for your wheel. This is the Logitech H shifter right here. And you know what? It's an entry-level shifter. Unfortunately, it requires a Logitech wheel in order to operate. It plugs directly into the wheel. It won't plug into the computer. It's not a USB cable. So you need to have a Logitech wheel to work with this entry-level shifter. Now, if you decide to go with a Thrustmaster T248, for example, and you want a shifter, well, you're going to need to go elsewhere to find a shifter. And for example, the Thrustmaster shifter, they don't have an entry-level shifter. They only have a mid-range, and it's at least double the price of this, even a little bit more at around $150. So be aware you're going to have to spend a little bit extra on the shifter if you go with the Thrustmaster wheel. So with all of that being considered, now we're looking just apples to apples between our Thrustmaster T248 and the Logitech G923. Well, the Thrustmaster has a better drive system. It's got a heads-up display. It has an internal app that controls the wheel, and I like the pedals better personally. I think it's a win-win-win-win for the Thrustmaster, in my opinion, between the Logitech for the same price point, if that's all we're considering. So that there is our review of the Thrustmaster T248. Of course, don't forget to drop a like, and of course, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. And you know what? I do like doing these product reviews. Maybe check out our last one we did on the Logitech side panel, the heavy equipment side panel for Farming Simulator. But you know what? It's more than just used for Farming Simulator. Go check out that video if you want to see more ways of using controls and controllers and the like. I think we should do more of these. A lot of fun. Anyways, guys, have a fantastic day. I'll catch you next time. This is Klutch. Over and out.